Hey guys, today I just wanted to talk about, well, I say talk, is more like a rant, and is mainly just about the current state of Dead by Daylight, and how the behavior of, pun intended, behavior have actually contributed to such a terrible state of the game. So currently we have 2v8 mode out in the game right now, which is part of week 3 of the Summerfest event. Week 1 we had Chaos Shuffle, week 2 we had Lights Out mode, and week 3, which we're currently in, is 2v8. Today I hopped into the game. I hadn't been on DBD for about 4 or 5 days, so I hopped into the game, hopped on stream, ready to have some fun. Went straight to 2v8 mode, a 38-minute queue timer. I said, screw that, not doing that. Went to 1v4, played 2 games before I got frustrated and just decided, you know what, I've had enough of DBD. And there's multiple reasons for this, but the biggest one is, and yo can be free to argue with me in the comments, the biggest one is, for a very long period of time, this game has been extremely survivor-sided. Extremely survivor-sided. To the point where I believe it's fair to say that a large portion of killer players are leaving the game, if not having already considered leaving up to this point. And I have my notes here. It may not be all cohesive, but I will try to go through everything as best as I can, because there's many reasons that contribute to this. But I want to start off with something very basic. You're in a game, you have 5 players in DBD. You have 4 survivors, you have 1 killer player. That means that killer player, that single killer player, is carrying 50% of your game. Now, if that 50% that's carrying half of your game is made to feel like the 1%, then the game loses its balance in the first place. You have a 4v1 game mode where killers are constantly punished to favor the majority, yet the majority cannot function without that minority. This is where the problem lies with Behaviour. Behaviour has such a massive monopoly on the asymmetrical horror genre for so long, because they have no competition, and they've had no competition for such a long time. They are free to do whatever they feel like with no consequences. And the worst thing about it is the community in DBD is so caught up with fighting with each other about killer or survivor, or who's better, who's worse, or just not agreeing or talking about their unwritten rules, that people fail to hold Behaviour themselves accountable. Now, there's quite a lot of things I want to go into, but one of the biggest ones I don't see talked about enough is the diminishing returns patch. I personally feel this patch broke killer pressure. They introduced a new diminishing returns system that reduces the effectiveness of stacked modifiers, which include action speed, any boosts you get from perks such as haste stacking, repair progress speed stacking, slowdown perks, everything. So the way the system works is the first perk you always get the full 100% value from. The second, you get it about 50%, and the third is about 25%. So by the time you reach your third or your fourth perk, there is essentially no point of running those perks, as they become useless. Now, for the survivor side, that doesn't matter too much. While you can't stack full maybe gen speed builds or full healing builds anymore, that has never been a problem on the survivor side, because survivors have such a variety of different builds and perks you can choose from to play the game however you like. And you still have a fairly good chance at winning the game however you construct that, especially if you're in a swift and have a coordinated team. A killer, you have to deal with all 4 survivors at once. Bear in mind, gen speed is 90 seconds. It takes 1 survivor 90 seconds of uninterrupted repairs to complete a generator. And on average, it takes about 60 to about 120 seconds for a killer to get that first down or get that first hook. So, essentially, you have killers who no longer have a full gen slowdown build to prevent survivors getting that first gen done before you even get your first down. That's all gutted because of diminishing return. Well, survivors can still do that. 2 survivors to a gen, about 60 seconds. Did you see the problem with this, right? I'm sure you do see the problem because it just gets worse than this. Now, another thing, which is going to be more on the controversial side. Survivors now see their team's perk loadout in game. Now, I understand the pros, especially for the solo queue side, because for the majority of my survivor playthroughs, I have always played in solo queue for the majority of it. So I understand how great that is for us. Seeing each other's perks, being able to coordinate is something that Swift squads already go into the game having, because they know each other's perks and they can communicate, so they make coordinating even more easier. It means no more guessing who has what, more optimized coordination in solo queue. However, killers still get nothing. And the reason why I have a problem with this, right, is if a quality of life update ruins balancing or helps one side more than it helps another side, then it's not a quality of life update, it is a buff or a nerf. Simple as. Like, I understand, obviously, it's more survivor thing, but at the same time, you need to think about how something as simple as this affects the other side, especially when the other side is 50% of your requirements to have an active game within your game. It's just ridiculous. And killer nerfs just keep coming. I mean, for example, they recently nerfed one of the strongest killers in the game, Blight. They nerfed his speed from 4.6 to 4.4, and I know a lot of people don't think it's the big deal or that it should happen, but I disagree a lot. The same way, I believe Asimov the other day made a video and he was talking about just improvements you can make to killers, and he was talking about how he believes Nurse should have to earn her bling. I completely disagree. The strongest killers in the game are the strongest killers in the game for a reason. You already have such a huge disparity between low tier killers and high tier killers. If you start nerfing the higher tier killers, where the lower tier killers already struggle so much, nobody is going to want to play your game. Nobody is going to want to play as a killer. Because what most people do, most people don't play lower tier killers unless they've really enjoyed them and they made that killer and have gotten better with them, or maybe they want to try them out or play it in passing. But most people don't generally veer towards low tier killers, especially at the higher MMRs. That just does not happen. So if you start nerfing all the high tier killers, nobody's gonna play them. Like, nobody's gonna play them, and you already have such a hard time seeing any of the low tier killers. So this is just mind-boggling to me. Like, before you can even start deciding on nerfing the current top tier killers, you have to consider the balance, and the balance has never quite been there. So I just don't understand it. Like, they keep buffing the mid-tier killers, right? Such as they gave Demogorgon a slight buff, Mastermind Doctor a slight buff, Ghostface a non-existent buff, essentially. Buffing mid-tier killers doesn't fix the core issue, which is gen speed versus killer pressure. Diminishing returns has killed killer pressure. Gen speed has killed killer pressure. Nerfing top-tier killers like Blight has killed killer pressure. Behaviour doesn't seem to understand that. Survivors can finish gens in under 5 minutes. Killer buffs don't matter. You can essentially be out of the Etta gates in 5 minutes. That's how quickly games can pass by these days, and it's ridiculous. If I am solo queue and winning more games as a survivor than I am as a killer, there is a big problem. Especially if I'm winning more games in solo queue. There is a very big problem. Even after all of these changes, the survivor meta is still strong because the diminishing returns doesn't mean much against things like the haystacking metas, because survivors still have other strong perks to have more variety. Haystacking is not really going to be a problem if you're running just a simple sprint versus visual build. You don't need to worry about haystacking. Sprint burst is one of the strongest perks in the game. It is probably the most powerful exhaustion perk in the game. Diminishing returns does not affect that, but let me guess, it affects a killer who decides to use pain rares and pop goes to Weasel at the same time or something like that. It's just ridiculous. Okay, survivor perks don't need to be strong. Killer perks need to be strong. Survivor perks need to be practical. And understanding that is a very big issue for behavior, it seems. I'm not going to go into the map balancing at the moment because that's a whole separate issue. But I do want to talk about the queue system at the moment and why it proves imbalance. Behaviour adding a play while you wait mode, a system which lets killers play as survivors while waiting in killer queues. And you have to wonder why they did it. Because killer queues are long. And why are killer queues long? Nobody wants to play killer. And even when they do play killer, most of the time they suffer. Killer is harder, more stressful, less rewarding, and in a community that constantly bashes killers for any strategies that don't adhere to a survivor playbook, it's no wonder why most people don't want to play killer. Not only adding to the fact that I understand it's a 4v1 game, you're obviously going to have a 4-to-1 ratio, but understand, even if you have a 4-to-1 ratio, it's still a 50-50 game. You need to have killers to be able to play for survivors to play the game. Without one, the other doesn't work. You make one side much more harder, more stressful and less rewarding. That side decides to leave. They're not going to stick around if they're not appreciated. I think quite a few creators would agree with me in saying that a lot of killer mains are leaving the game. I tried to queue up for a 2v8 game today. It was a 38-minute queue. I'm not waiting 40 minutes. 40 minutes of maybe playing while you wait a survivor game, like 3 or 4 survivor games, just to get into a killer game and play one game. And I might not even win that game probably because the event is so survivor-sided, which I have not even gotten to yet. Believe me, I am coming back to the events that DBD has had recently. But I'm not going to wait 40 minutes and load into a killer game and then just have a bad experience. And that's not even the worst part of it, because Dead by Daylight has been famous for their bugs and their issues. And I know it's happened to me a few times where I've been in a 2v8 queue for half an hour, and when it's about 2 minutes away from my time to have my killer game, DBD disconnects or it loses my place in queue or there's some issue. Okay, DBD Behaviour especially have been famous for being extremely bad at managing bugs and issues within their game. They are terrible at it. They'd rather just let bugs fester to the next patch, because I understand there is a process in the way they do things. But for example, when we had Jim the Bean there during the loading screen, you guys remember how long we had Jim the Bean over there. It's just, I don't see any other live service game with developers this bad at fixing issues or when it comes to balancing. It's just ridiculous. Like right now the game is completely survivor sided. Killers have less slowdown while survivors have more information. Maps are more survivor favored. The strong killers get nerfs. Survivors get quality to their life buffs every single patch, including how elusive didn't used to be a thing about a year ago, and now elusive is one of, if not the strongest survivor status in the game. For example, I really want to talk about the events in Dead by Daylight, and this just proves the mindsets of Behaviour developers right now, or for the longest time. It was how in the past, flashlights were never nerfed. They used to be able to insta-blind you, and Flasher wasn't nerfed until one of the main Behaviour devs just played a game where he was using a hag and he got absolutely destroyed, and then they decided to nerf flashlights. It took that to get one single balance update for the killers. That's how much it took. That's just ridiculous. We had the 10th anniversary event with the Black Banquet quite recently, where survivors had unbreakable pallets, invincibility, which is a new mechanic to the game, invisibility, on-demand sprint burst, heal and health state anytime a table was set, and all the killers had was a poison jar that was able to give survivors a stamina bar with before eventually slowing down, as long as they haven't lost their health state yet. And that only lasted for what, maybe 20 seconds? That's just plain stupid. That's just stupid balancing. I'm not afraid to call out behavior where I see fit. And it's probably one of the reasons I'm glad that I'm still a small-time YouTuber, because I doubt I would ever like to join Behaviour's creator program. Because I do know content creators who are part of the creator program do have guidelines and things they can and can't talk about to an extent. I know there are some part of the creator program that Scott joined who talk about a lot of things and still able to criticize the game, but I've got a lot of frustration with this game, so I'm planning to get it all out, especially right now in this rant. If we even look at the lights out event, that was just plain shambles. Plain shambles. It was supposed to return Dead by Daylight to its horror roots and make everything base kit for both sides. Instead, they gave survivors windows of opportunity with a lantern, which is arguably one of the strongest survivor information perks in the game. They just gave it to them for free. On top of not only every generator starting in the game with progress on already, they gave survivors a 20% base kit to gen speed repair. How broken do you have to make it? How blatant do you have to make it for one side before it's obvious that you're saying to your players and saying to your player base, fuck you, we don't care about killers? Because that is essentially what they have been saying for the past couple of years now. Like, the result of all of their decisions over the past couple of years is right now the game feels like this for survivors. It's faster gens, more info, safer loots with a pallet density, better coordination, better tools and less punishment for buddy blocking. In the lights out game mode, 60 seconds of endurance and borrowed time. Like 60 seconds, elusive off the hook as well. Like, make it to make sense to me, behavior. Make it make sense to me. Like, oh, it just makes zero sense. As a killer, you essentially have to play perfect, while as a survivor, you just have to be good enough. That's essentially the state of Dead by Daylight right now. It's no longer a 50-50 game. At the best, it's a 70 to 30% game. And I say that at best because it feels even worse than that right now. I'm not asking for killers to be overpowered. I'm asking for the game to be fed. When your killer feels like an addition to the game rather than a focus, rather than an important part of the game, that's when you start having an issue. And this is the reason I believe that Behaviour's monopoly on the asymmetrical genre is killing DVD. Because essentially they're becoming what 2K is to the NBA 2K games, where because they have a monopoly on the basketball, the microtransactions and the patches are unbalanced. It's just going all over the place. And it's a shame because I really do like DVD. And it's even more why I'm looking forward to the new Halloween game coming out. Because at least, even though it won't be as big as DVD in terms of history and content and killers, it's still some form of competition that we can get behind. Some form of competition that gives a fresh change in the genre from Dead by Daylight. But let me know what you think down in the comments. Obviously, I've gone on a very long and extended rant. Let me know what you think in the comments. Hit that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel. Peace out, guys, and remember, stay cynical.